Please, if I may, it's page 1, strike lines 2 through 4, and insert the following. This act may be cited as the Kristi Noem Canine Relief Act of 2025. It is noteworthy that we are doubling down on deporting, arresting individuals who assault dogs in this case. And make no mistake, I am strongly against anyone assaulting dogs. And I think the ranking member laid out very clearly the problem with this bill. But I really want to know how, if at all, it would apply to cabinet members who have admitted that they have shot and killed a dog. Is it only at the ports of entry, or is this just broadly against any assault on dogs? Because my understanding from reading the bill is that this would apply to someone who kills a dog. Now, obviously, we're focused here on the deportation of people who kill dogs. And presumably that would not apply to U.S. citizens, although I understand my colleagues on the other side are, in many cases, trying to denaturalize people. But certainly the Secretary of Homeland Security, as a born American subject to birthright citizenship, would not be able to be denaturalized. So I understand that this bill would not necessarily apply because it is really focused on making sure that we double down and deport not just people who are convicted of killing dogs, but people who have been alleged to have killed dogs. And so this renaming, I think, would really capture the true essence of the bill, which is that we really don't want anybody to kill dogs, especially the Secretary of Homeland Security. And so I would urge my colleagues to support this amendment that would rename the bill the Kristi Noem Canine Relief Act of 2025. And I yield back.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California.
I would insist on my point of order because of the nature of the amendment, but since I've been told that it is technically in order, I would rather say, can I please call the previous question and dispense with this? No?
Can you also, can maybe,
okay.
can maybe you say that you're against,
I'd like to
can
strike,
you say you're against the amendment?
I'd like to strike the last word, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman, the word kill, I'm looking for it in the bill. The word Kristi Noem is being injected by the other side. This is about, in fact, a difference between many of us on the right and many on the left, which is, do people at the time of their request to enter the country or during their stay as visa holders, do they have the same right against being deported that American citizens have? And the answer obviously is no. And I think the gentleman wisely said, citizens are not to be deported. However, a visa or a visa at the port of entry when you're attempting to enter, particularly carrying drugs as this person did, and I only question why he isn't still in jail rather than having been deported.
Ag produce.
Pardon me? Oh, okay. It wasn't drugs. I apologize. But the fact is, this is an example of the difference between the two views. The view that everyone has a right to be here with or without a visa, with or without good conduct. It is clear that this is necessary for the very reason of the argument by my colleague, is he is arguing that somehow, we don't need this law. We need the law if there's ambiguity as to whether or not your entry into the country is at the discretion of the United States government based on your clear living up to the standards for which we have granted that entry. And the standards for granting that entry are higher than just a question of breaking the law. And I think that's the important point, that if you want to say that you have to, as has been said in this committee repeatedly, you have to do egregious things. I remember markups in this committee where we said, if you have been convicted of driving under the influence 100 times, is that enough times to deport you? That was after we did 50 and 25 and 10. We kept increasing it, and at no point could we get a clear agreement that there must be a point at which somebody is a clear and present danger based on driving under the influence or other offenses, and yet we could find no basis for it, only that if it was a violent felony meeting some requirement. With all due respect for today, when they've killed somebody, maimed somebody, or committed a violent felony, but they have done other things indicating their failure to be on good behavior, earlier we have missed the point because we have caused egregious harm to our cities and to our citizens because we waited too long. If you're going to kick a dog because it's simply trying to investigate whether you're carrying contraband and doing the job at a port of entry, then you've already shown that you are not fit to come into our country based on our rules. And for that reason, I oppose any changing of the name that would distract from the obvious goal that the gentleman wrote this bill for, which is to protect the law enforcement people and their service animals from the kind of attacks we saw here. And with that, I would yield back.
Mr. Chairman,
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I don't really care about the title of the bill. It's clever to call it the Kristi Noem bill because Canine Relief Act, to remind people of how cruel she was to an animal when we're talking about animal cruelty. But the real issue of this bill is not that. The real issue of this bill is that it applies penalties to people who have not been convicted. It says convicted or admitted or various other things, but they have not been convicted. It is fundamental to justice in this country that no one can be punished without being convicted of a crime. There is nothing more fundamental to the liberties of this country than the requirement of conviction of a crime. This bill and several of the other bills on the calendar today do away with that. That is a crime against the Constitution. It's a crime against liberty. We cannot have a society in which people can be convicted of a crime, sentenced to jail or to a fine or whatever, without being convicted, period. That is a fundamental thing in this country. It's been fundamental to English common law before this country. And now we're going to repeal that? That is the core issue of this bill. That's why I oppose the bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
First of all, it's good to see you all. It's been a long time since we've been together, since we were all furloughed together by the Speaker. And so it's good to be with you. I see trying to get some muscle memory back for you all, see if you have a sense of humor. I want to just set the record straight on a couple of things. We keep referring to Kristi Noem's dog as a dog, but actually, it was a puppy. It was 14 months old. And that puppy had a name. Say its name. Cricket. Okay, that puppy had a name. And so if you had a couple moments, I would now like to do a spirited reading from the book by our Secretary of Homeland Security. It starts, I hated that dog. On the way home from a hunt, the dog on the way home from a pheasant hunt was untrainable, and it went to go attack the chickens. And at that moment, I realized I had to put her down. So I grabbed a gun and led Cricket to a gravel pit. Wasn't a pleasant job, but it had to be done. And after it was over, I realized another unpleasant job needed to be done. And so I went and got the family goat and brought that to the gravel pit. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to kill that goat with one shot. So anyway, I think the point of bringing it up is, on the merits of the bill, we can debate the merits of the bill. But if we're just going to get on our high horse about animal cruelty, which I think we all agree on, by the way, I think there's unanimity here on animal cruelty. I just, want to make sure that we apply that universally, and I think that's what the gentleman from New York is just trying to remind our colleagues, who we have not seen in a while, that, the Secretary of Homeland Security also did not treat an animal in which we believe the animal should be treated. And with that, I'll yield if Mr. Raskin has any questions.
Well, welcome back, Mr. Moskowitz. And first of all, I think your reference to goats is completely immaterial to what we're discussing today. It's not part of the bill. Isn't that right?
There are no goats in the bill. I was meaning, not me, and she wrote this in the book, that after she shot the dog, she was like, that was awesome, go get the goat. So.
All right, well, getting back to the substance of it, whether it's a magnificent dog like Freddie, who joins us today, or Cricket, whose reputation has obviously been besmirched by the Secretary of Homeland Security, all dogs deserve not to be treated in a cruel and capricious way. But the point here is that everything that anybody in this room would have wanted to happen happened in this case. Right after the culprit kicked Freddie, the culprit was apprehended, was arrested, was charged, and spent 3 days in jail before being removed and deported from the country. So one asks, other than the opportunity to say we agree with what happened, what are we doing here? All that's really happening is that the majority is using it as an opportunity to try to dilute this standard that is working perfectly well, which is that if you are actually convicted of such an offense, then you will be immediately removable and deportable from the country. And there's no reason to puncture that basic line, as Mr. Nadler says, in our jurisprudence. And I can't see why any of us would want to go down that road. I thank you for reminding us that animal cruelty is a serious problem across the country, Mr. Moskowitz and Mr. Goldman. And I do hope that we can all agree that what happened in this case is precisely what should have happened. We don't need to be tampering with the law at this point. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arizona is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this particular amendment, maybe we should amend this amendment to call it the Shri Thandadar bill. And so with that, I think this particular interesting article here is from the UK Daily Mail. Democratic congressman trying to impeach President Trump has been accused of abandoning over 100 dogs to starve after his company cruelly tested pharmaceuticals on them. Shri Thandadar was behind a testing lab that shut down in 2010. Months after the New Jersey lab closed, local animal rights activists alerted authorities to 118 beagles that had been left behind locked in the facility. At the time, the lab's ex-workers told USA Today they had been jumping fences at the facility to provide food and water for the dogs. Insiders claimed that even before the dogs were abandoned to starve, they had lived horrific lives in captivity and were subject to toxicology tests. I don't think they've actually had their paws on the grass. When I walked in here, it looked like they were walking on eggshells. They were kind of afraid to walk on the grass. The point is, and so, Mr. Chairman, I submit for the record this article from UK Daily Mail entitled, Dem Congressman Shri Thandadar famed for railing against Trump carried out an unspeakable act against 118 beagles.
Without objection.
And by the way, California-based organization Defense of Animals then went back to the same site and saved 55 long-tailed macaque monkeys as well. The point is, you're trying to make a joke out of something, and the reality is what happened should not have happened. And when you try to minimize something that's serious, sometimes your humor is not really funny. It's flat. And so if we're going to invoke names here, then I would invoke the name of your own colleague, Sri Thanadar. With that,
Would the gentleman yield?
I'll yield to the gentleman from California.
Perhaps the gentleman would consider modifying his suggestion by adding the name of Anthony Fauci, who's alleged to have presided over the torture of many more beagles and other harmless creatures, all in the name of perverted science.
Will the gentleman yield?
I would be happy to include that amendment. So Mr. Chairman, I'm making an oral amendment to change the title of the article of the underlying bill.
Without objection?
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
No.
Okay. That's totally fine.
I'm going to object to that.
Okay. Okay. There's an objection raised to the amendment offered to the amendment. All those in, we can take a roll call on all those in favor. All the,
Who seeks recognition?
well,
Who seeks recognition?
but I want. Have you yielded back? Is the gentleman yielded back? Yeah. All right. Who seeks recognition? The gentleman from Tennessee seeks recognition. Your gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am a major animal rights,
Why can't we?
animal protection legislator for 40 years. I'll have a tie on today with puppy dogs, not because I knew we had this bill, because I like puppy dogs. And Freddie's a great dog. But Mr. Raskin did an excellent job in saying why we don't need this bill. I don't believe my friend Mr. McClintock responded to Mr. Raskin's argument about this being duplicitous, and I think we have a bill that I'm a sponsor of that I think might have been Jim Jordan's bill that said we should go through and eliminate laws in the code that are duplicitous and unnecessary. Mr. McClintock, you're my friend. I have great respect for you. Can you tell me why Mr. Raskin's argument's not dispositive of this bill?
Yes, as I stated in my opening subject, and by the way, Mr. Cohen, I return the compliments. I have a high degree of respect for you, which you well know, and I'm proud to say to all here. And it's very simple. It is correct that it could be interpreted as moral turpitude to have been convicted or to have admitted to such a crime. The problem is that then can trigger a lengthy legal process to determine whether or not that constitutes moral turpitude. And this cuts through all of that red tape and simply says, if you kick a 5-year-old beagle, you're not going to be allowed back in this country. No further legal proceedings are necessary. Now, you do have to either be convicted of that or admit to that. In this case, this foreign national admitted to it. But if he tried to come back in the country, he could trigger a long legal process to determine whether or not that act constituted moral turpitude. This bill makes that legal process unnecessary and simply says, you're not welcome here, go home.
Thank you, Mr. McClintock. Mr. Raskin, you would like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. First of all, there is no judicial review of an inadmissibility determination administratively, so it's just false to say that you'd be tied up endlessly in litigation or red tape around that. I mean, I think the facts of this very case, which is the only case that's been advanced by the majority, completely contradict what we just heard, because this all happened within 3 days. So where are the years or months or weeks of litigation and red tape? He was found guilty and he was removed from the country the next day. And he spent 3 days in jail. So he was not, out on the street endangering Cricket or any other dogs at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Raskin. I appreciate the discussion. I'm probably going to vote for this, even though I think Mr. Raskin's discussion is right and it's not necessary, because it's not worth our time. Kumbaya, let's do something for the puppies. Get it. Truman said, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog.
Would the gentleman yield for 1 moment?
Sure.
Just in a last-ditch effort to dissuade you, because at first my reaction was yours too, which is, well, this is completely redundant and duplicative, as well as duplicitous, as I think you misspoke and said as well. But why not just let it go? It's not that big a deal. The problem is it sets a very bad precedent now where we're saying we're going to dispense with the necessity of actually trying people for crimes, and we're just going to declare them guilty of the crime, and then they can be removable or deportable, or, in the context of citizens, subject to other kinds of administrative law sanctions. And one would think that the Judiciary Committee of all places in Congress would want to resist that erosion of basic standards. Thanks.
I will reserve my judgment, but I am very much affected, as I'm sure Mr. Roy is, by his contact with Freddie.
Mr. Chairman,
What was the gentleman?
I need to strike the last word.
I think well, you're on the amendment. Go ahead. The gentleman's recognized.
Thank you.
Did you speak on the
Mr.
amendment?
Chairman, I'm
or
not going to repeat the argument that I made, that Mr. Raskin made, that this is a very terrible precedent to set, that we can penalize people without actually convicting them in a court of law. I just want to comment on something I think it was Mr. Biggs said when he was talking about cruelty to animals. And of course, cruelty to animals is terrible. But he used the name of Anthony Fauci. Now, no one has alleged that Anthony Fauci was cruel to animals. Now, true, animals were used in his medical experiments, as always is the case. You don't want to give a new drug to a person without first testing it on animals. That is part of the scientific method. It is absolutely necessary for safety for human beings. Now, Mr. Biggs mentioned someone else, I forget who it was, who he said was cruel to animals. He may well have been. But when he mentioned Anthony Fauci, he was not. He simply used animals in the proper scientific method to protect human beings. And I don't think we want to say that drugs should be tested or medical procedures should be tested first on humans without being tested first on animals. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I would just state what we're talking about here is a pretty simple question. If you've got an animal, in this case we're talking about a dog, we're talking about Freddie, in service to our country, and we've got an individual who is here as a guest, port of entry in this question, or it could be now you're talking about in the interior or otherwise, and they kick a dog. They kick this animal. They harm this animal. That we don't believe you should be a guest anymore. That's literally all we're saying. I don't think this is that complicated. Don't be an idiot, or we're going to remove you or not admit you. It's that simple. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't get a chance to meet Freddie, but I hope that Freddie is getting some SAG or AFTRA credits for participating in this show today. I do not support this, not because I don't support animals. In fact, I just adopted a dog 2 weeks ago from the shelter. But this really is an attempt to try and legitimize unlawful deportations and using it through the weaponization of Freddie, or using dogs as pawns because they have a soft spot in our hearts. And I've listened to some of the comments, and we have to just say, let's not pretend that this is about protecting law enforcement, because it's not. If we were really serious about protecting law enforcement, there would have been a larger outcry from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle about pardoning January 6ers who attacked Capitol Police. Last I checked, Capitol Police are members of law enforcement. There'd be less consternation about even putting a plaque up on the wall honoring those Capitol Police officers who so valiantly protected everybody up in this place. If we were really about protecting law enforcement, you would have been against cutting government funding to law enforcement that work with community-based organizations in our districts and cities and states across this country who are working to make the streets safer. If it was really about protecting law enforcement, there would have been a larger outcry about giving settlement money, government money, to folks who actually attacked Capitol Police officers. If it was really about protecting law enforcement, there would be an outcry about why the DOJ is actually taking AUSAs off cases where they and law enforcement have been working on for years to go after cartels and human traffickers. People kidnapping our children and trafficking them and prostituting them. So let's keep it real. This is a charade. It's a charade. I guess we have to get it out of our system. But this is not about protecting law enforcement. And no, Freddie shouldn't have been kicked. No dog shouldn't be kicked. But there should be a larger outcry actually about don't be an idiot, don't kick a dog. How about don't kick your wife? Don't kick a child. Don't molest a child. Don't traffic a child. How about that? No outcry about that. No outcry about that. So I don't know if I would like to yield my time, I guess, to our ranking member. If not, I yield back. Or I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from